Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes. It's week 6 here in season 2 of 2021. My name is TJ, I'm joined by Sato. We are...
You know what, actually, TJ, let me just stop you there real quick, because there's something that needs addressing before we even get into the hot takes. We need to talk about it. The public will demand it. It's the real hot button issue. It's what everyone cares about right now. We need to talk about Prediction Gate, TJ, and I just need to let it be on the record that TJ's campaign to scam me out of deserved victories has now got even bigger than hot takes. I think he's been missing the opportunity this season to be able to scam me out some hard-deserved wins. So he actually even colluded with the social media team this time around in order to scam me out of a deserved win in the weekly predictions in Grandmasters. So I'd just like to tell a story about how petty TJ Sanders is. Back when we did predictions back in the old HCT days, we used to give out trophies for victories in those prediction contests. So every time I would win and take home the trophy, which by the way was literally every single time, TJ, who was then working for Blizzard, would order an extra copy of the same trophy so that every time I was presented with a trophy, he had one that he did not earn, which he still has to this day. Is that not correct, TJ?
The part of me still having it to this day is correct.
No further questions, Your Honor. We can move on. Hot takes. How's it going?
The other information is incorrect. I was not the one who ordered the trophies, and I understand why they did it. It was because in case one got lost / broken, we had a backup. And they were like $1. So I'm pretty sure it was cheaper to buy 2, actually. That was it. It was like a 2 for $1 deal or 1 for $1.50. So yeah. It just, made fiscal sense to buy 2. That was that. And you didn't even let me finish my intro, which was Sato and I are the co-champions.
All right.
Of the prediction race this last weekend. Sato handles the day-to-day predictions, and I handle the big picture predictions. So.
Okay. Very good.
And as we all know, big picture is much better.
Yeah.
It's much better.
Yeah. But
it's bigger. It's bigger.
But I feel like what is a day-to-day decision is that we can shake hands and make up here. So if you want to go for a handshake cross camera, this is great because we can't even actually see each other right now. So if you want to just shake hands, are you doing it?
Okay.
Are we shaking?
Yep.
All right. Cool. Can't wait to see how that comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. All right, let's move into some hot takes. Intro over. I'm done with it. Hot take number 1, and this one is sizzling. This may be the hottest take we've done all season long. And here it is. The current standings for all 3 regions are a perfect representation of player skill ranking.
Wow. Well, I mean, let's pull up some standings, I suppose. Yeah, that is definitely going to be pretty spicy to talk about. Starting with APAC. Looking through, not bad, I would say. I think the Japanese contingent at the top, Possessi in 1st, Alatemu in 3rd. Makes sense. Give Please, I think, has been super impressive. He's hanging out in 2nd. That makes sense as well. And we've got the likes of Surrender and Alan hanging out at the top as well, going down to the bottom, which I guess is where hot takes get a little bit more spicy. Dawn at the bottom, sorry, but yes, that makes sense to me. Blitzchung, I think, has potential, but maybe having announced retirement already is kind of checked out at this point. Bank Yugi down there as well. I know, sorry, he's a fan of the show. I know he watches, but yeah, kind of. I can see it. It's not bad, right? But we can pick some holes for sure. Our world champion in 11th, is that a true representation of skill? I think the difficult ones then to talk about are people like Okashinsuke and Gur, right? Because they're kind of middle of the pack, upper middle of the pack. But I don't think we know too much about them. Do you have any additional thoughts on APAC?
Nope, I think this is a fact. It's an exact representation of
it's pretty
player skill.
Good. It's actually pretty good looking at it. Like, I'm not going to lie, that's close.
Yeah, the system is working as intended, and you go over to Europe, it only gets more accurate.
Yeah.
If you could get more accurate from exactly accurate, that's the case. All you need to look at is the top, is number 1. Gabby's in 1st with 19 points. That's it.
I rest my case. Yeah, Gabby fantastic, obviously. Called his shot, marched in, took first, overtook Frenetic. Bly's third best player in Europe, therefore I guess the third best player in the world, right, if we're going with this. Would you agree with that, TJ? Bly's obviously one of the absolute best in the world, right? You'd agree with that, TJ, right? TJ?
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, fine.
Barney, I think we have a problem where, like, maybe we'd need to boost Yala up a little bit if we're going for true representation. I do think there's also an interesting discussion to be had about if we're going to actually put a formula on it. It's like player skill multiplied by level of effort, where 1 is the full amount of effort that they're putting in, right? Because I think when you get into Europe, into like 7th and 8th, RDU and Viper, I think they're 2 players that at their peak are 2 of the most talented players that we've seen at Constructed Hearthstone, but I don't think neither of them is putting in 100% effort to Constructed Hearthstone this season, which is why they're not really up there in the upper playoff position, so I think you probably have to throw that modifier in there as well. Here's one. Tice, 14th. Over to you, TJ.
Let's move on to Americas, shall we? Monsanto at the top just makes so much sense, right? He's doing everything. He's got the multiplier for effort, because he puts in a lot of effort week after week. He's been the best performing Americas player in Masters Tours as well. If you look at the points earnings for Masters Tours in this cycle, he would qualify easily in first place for Grandmasters again. And even in other regions, he would as well. So I have to add that asterisk because, America's first place doesn't really mean anything. And then as you go down the standings, honestly, it's close, right? Luna and Dimitri, those are 2 players at 10th and 11th that I think I would move up a little bit, but looking at the players above them, they've all been performing exceptionally this season. And Dimitri has had some clean play, but Luna has definitely had some times of struggle, though she's still world class. Nobody can deny that. And then at the bottom, killing all day in Eddie. I mean, Eddie at his prime is, has to be in the conversation for one of the best players, or at the very least, the best player that's never been to the World Championship in the conversation for that title. And it also just seems like maybe not putting in the effort this season. He even made a post about it, about how he's been bringing aggro decks. This is a player that in a combo meta you'd expect to just have the greediest combo decks imaginable, and he's just bringing an aggro lineup, which is a bummer to see. So overall, I think this take, out of every week we've had hot takes in Grandmasters, if it's not perfect, this is the closest we're gonna get. Would you agree there, at least? Yeah,
and I think also, I suppose, kind of interesting to rank them in terms of accuracy. I think APAC is the most accurate in terms of my perception of player skill versus the standings. Europe is in the middle, and I would say Americas is the worst, because I do look at this and say, like, Dreadeye, 3rd best player in the Americas. No, not feeling it. McBanterface, 5th best player in Americas. No, not feeling it. Luna, 11th best player out of 16. No, I think she's better than that, So I think there's most problems with the Americas rankings if we're going to go with it. But actually, yes, having looked at it, surprisingly accurate, more so than I would have thought it had been.
Yep, and I can't wait for the player tweets at us once they tune into Hot Takes this week. That's the best part. It's the take that keeps on giving. Yep. But I feel like we've gone over that one enough. Let's move on to our second hot take of the week. Last week was not the last time we will see Warlock nerfed this expansion. Boom.
Oh. Yeah.
This is a good one.
Quest is a heck of a card, isn't it? Even when it's slower. The problem is, like, obviously the power level of the quest is relative to the metagame, right? So if you nerf the power of the quest, which you have done now, you've made the quest slower, as long as the metagame stays the same speed around that, then you have nerfed the quest. The problem is what happens when, say, we have like the mini set that comes out in the middle of the expansion. What if that slows the game down a little bit? Then suddenly, in relative terms, the quest is just as powerful as it was before, right? And it still shuts down all of these like late game strategies that you might be wanting to go for. It's still incredibly stabilizing as an effect on the game. You still draw a million cards. You still cheat a million mana. You do all of these things that Warlock do. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. This is a very speculative one because obviously the contents of the mini set could be anything. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if like the design team actually looks at a situation like this and maybe there's just a few mumbled whispers in the design room like, yeah, you know those Warlock cards that are in the mini set? Just take one off all the numbers because we don't want to be going back into that Warlock meta again. You know, like genuinely I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that enters their mindset, but it would not surprise me for sure. I think it's a very dangerous card, the Warlock Quest, to exist in the metagame for sure.
Yeah, and even if you break it down further, right, Warlock just kind of has answers to just about everything that the metagame can offer. They have the inevitability with the quest, right? If there's ever this control meta, they're just going to win. Because unless you have some type of OTK or weird disruption, if it's specifically targeted at Warlock, it's going to win those attrition battles because of the quest completion and fatigue. It's got great tools against board-based decks, whether they're aggressive or mid-range or whatever. Soul Rend has, honestly, it's not even a downside anymore, discarding cards from your deck because of the quests and because of Bristleback and Scavenger and everything that goes along with it. It just expedites that process. Its only real weakness is these combo decks that kill it before it can get its threats online.
Yeah.
At least that's what it feels. And Mind Rider Lucia, but whatever. The old Mind Rider Lucia. And so, I don't think we're going to see a world where combo decks get any faster. If anything, we're going to see a world where combo decks get slower or get pushed out of the metagame.
Right.
So I think this is probably like the worst environment for Warlock to be in right now, post-nerfs, and it's still performing pretty well. It performed quite well last week in Grandmasters. And so if you think like these, you know, Garrote Rogue decks that are going to get slower, or Celestial Druid, or, you know, Anacondra Druid, or whatever combo Druid archetype you want to throw in there, once those start to get pushed out of the metagame, which I think they eventually will, whether it be through nerfs or just through a metagame shift in general, then yeah, I think that Warlock's just going to move up the rankings again, despite the nerfs that have happened. So I think that we probably will see one, whether it's because of the mini set or just because of other decks rising and falling in popularity. I think Warlock just has the answer to everything in the current metagame.
Yeah, and I think also you've got to throw in there, you know, since we weren't specific, the wild format as well, because Warlock is literally always broken in Wild. It's just a matter of how broken it gets as to whether the dev team have to step in, because obviously they generally don't like making big changes to Wild, but if we're going to factor that in as well, I think, you know, accepting that Warlock is broken has just become a bit of a theme in Wild. It's just the levels that we reach, and I'm sure we'll get there again very quickly.
Well, our only goal left for now for Grandmasters and Hot Takes is to get Pirate Warrior up there too, so we can match Wild as well. Because that's been a menace for quite some time, also. But I think we're done. We're done with Hot Takes. Nice. We're actually running out of episodes, so we're gonna have to make these takes even hotter in future weeks. I don't even know anymore. I don't even know how to make these hotter. We're making them as hot as they can be.
I know. I was thinking, like, we spend quite some time before we start recording, like, trying to think of these takes ourselves. Now that we do it, we don't have the glory of, like, Abar feeding us all these topics that he knows we'll argue about. Abar just knew how to push our buttons, dude. Like, he was so good at it. But soon, like, we spent ages, like, not being able to think of a second one that we were happy with. And then as you were talking there, you said, I think Eddie's a good candidate for best player to have never made Worlds. And I was like, why didn't we just do that? Like, we should just argue about something completely different while we're setting up, and then we will get a hot take out of it just by something that one of us says.
Well, maybe we can start compiling a list and do that for next week. That's a good one. But we do have to end it here. That's going to do it for Hot Takes, Episode 6 for Season 2 of 2021. Thank you very much, Sottle, for joining me. And to all of you out there, thanks for watching. And we'll see you next week for more Hot Takes.